Hello everybody, welcome to episode 172 of Short Viewer. Today we'll be going over episode 11 of Daemons of the Shadow Realm. This episode starts off with us seeing as Yuru goes to investigate after having beat Tenaga and Ashinaga to look for their master, and he noticed that he knew where their master was now because when he passed by an area while fighting them, they did not attack nor go wild around that area. It's because their master was there. So we see as he ends up going and looking under the lost house where he ends up finding a kid. And then the kid ends up coming out, and we see as everyone's kind of scared of him for a second, but then ultimately he mentions that he is a Tadera, and everyone starts presuming, yo, is this Tadera Ryu's kid? Or I'm just gonna call him Ryu since there's multiple Taderas now. But they're like, yo, is this Ryu's kid? Ryu's freaking out. He's like, is this my kid? And ultimately he ends up revealing who his mom is, and he's like, dude, I don't know this. This kid is not my kid. And ultimately he ends up revealing that his father, Roe, ended up telling Ryu about him and about how he was in control of the lost house now and he needed to look for him. And we learned in fact that Roe is Ryu's father as well. So Ryu's father has been getting about, and he has two children that are 22 years apart. Now they're not from the same mother. We see that Ken, who is the younger son, Ken Tarera, had his mother was Ethiopian, so he was half Japanese, half Ethiopian. And obviously Tadero, he's whatever he is, so we just know he's part Japanese at least. But yeah, so we learned they're brothers who are 22 years apart, with Ken being 13 and Ryu being 35. So we see as all this is kind of discussing everything, they kind of get the kinks worked out, and ultimately this leads to them discussing about how now they're going to bury the people who ended up dying in the Lost House. And we see as Wright ends up digging up a hole for him, so they prepare to throw all of them away. Also, I forgot to mention at the beginning of the episode, we actually get to see as Asuma's Daemons mentioned to him about how they had now figured out how to get into the Lost House realm, or get into the Lost House Daemon, so that they could then, so that then the Tateras could not escape the Kagemoris in such a way. But yeah, so back to where we were talking. Ultimately see all this play out, and they just kind of keep talking, and ultimately they decide we cannot stay in the Lost House because we will get caught now that Asuma knows how to get in here. And we also see how Ken ended up explaining about why he was with Tanaga and Ashinaga. He mentions about how his father taught him everything he needed to know about Daemons, and then once his mother died a little bit prior, that he was like, you know what, I need to get a crazy strong Daemon because his father wasn't around and he didn't come back after his mother had died. So ultimately he's like, I need to get a crazy strong Daemon. So he ended up passing by the mountain one day when they were sealed, and ultimately ended up making a contract with them, which then freed him, but they wouldn't really listen to him because they were so much more evil than Ken, because Ken was actually just kind, soft, a kind and soft child, but they were ravenous Daemons. So we see as that's kind of why he couldn't control them once they were in the Lost House and all of that. And that also we know why he was in the Lost House, because his father told him where it was and who it was owned by and all of that. And obviously since he was a Tadera, he taught him how to get into it, because we learned that Roe, who was Ryu's father and Ken's father, was actually the predecessor who had previously owned, actually still had a contract with the Lost House Daemon. So that's kind of why no one was defended by the Lost House when they entered it, because their master was not actually there. But yeah, so I just kind of got all that information, and we see that, what was I saying? That, yeah, how he ended up getting with Tanaga and Ashinaga, and that's ultimately how they ended up in the Lost House, because they followed their master there. And then after that, we see as they ultimately end up letting the old granny woman who was a hitman for Asuma get released from the Lost House, and she agrees that she won't be telling Asuma anything about them or about Yuru or any of that, even though they did learn about Yuru because of what was said to Tanaga and Ashinaga, and therefore the butterfly recon thing was able to hear it. But yeah, so after that we see is ultimately they end up leaving the Lost House realm, where they end up going back to Ryu and Hana's apartment. And we see Hana starts freaking out. She's like, yo, Ryu's got a secret kid. And she's like, no, I'm a newlywed. My husband's already got a secret child, and he's been gone gambling and all that, because they did pick up lottery tickets on the way. And he's been womanizing because she saw the little calling card that Jen had given to Ryu. But yeah, so we see all this, and obviously it plays out really goofily and everything. And then we see as everyone kind of gets to know each other, and Ken's reintroduced to Hana. And we see that the cat Daemon that Hana has really is interested in Ken, and so we kind of see as all this plays out, and we see they get talking and everything. Ultimately, they end up agreeing that they have to search out for Roe Tadera, because he was the one who helped, as Ken revealed, was the one who helped Yuru's parents get out of Higashi village, and this was because Nagisa, Yuru's mother, had blackmailed him into assisting them and ultimately allowing them to escape. And also, Roe was not a big fan of the twin system, so he's like, you know what, I'll help you anyways. So they need to search for, whatchamacallit, because though the parents, they kind of start joining with the Kagemoras a little bit more, they still had connection to Roe, so that's why they need to go find Roe, because Roe might have a lead as to where to find Yuru's parents. And so, we see as all this continues, and ultimately we see as everyone kind of starts going to bed, we see as Yuru and Ken end up discussing about how they hope each other's parents are found soon, and we then see also as Ryu's drinking, we see as Hana comes in, and they mention about how that Ken had rushed so much that his mother was unable to be buried, so they have her ashes there, and they're ultimately like, yeah, let's go up on the mountain someday and bury her ashes in a very respectful and proper manner. Yeah, that's what that really was for this episode. Now, it was obviously a very slow episode, but I'm glad we got to learn a lot more. We got a new interesting character with Ken, because I think Ken's going to be really cool. Ken has a cool design, and he has like one little plume of white hair, while Tadera has like the piece there on his head. So I thought that was kind of cool to show that he is a Tadera. I bet that's probably like a genetic factor within them, or a hereditary piece of genetics. But yeah, well, I mean, all genetics are hereditary, but... never mind. But yeah, so we see that. Now, I am ready to see where we're going to go with this, because I know I Googled it, and we have 3 more episodes left of this core, at least. So there's going to be 24 episodes, 2 cores. So a 14-episode core and a 10-episode core. So I'm really ready to see where we're going to conclude this core with, because we are building a lot here, but we're not really getting a lot of action. So I believe it's building up to save back the action for whenever we end up getting to like the final couple of episodes, which we are now in, because we only have 3 episodes left of this core. But yeah, I'm really enjoying it. Like, even though, like I said, this was less action-packed and all of that, I am loving it, and I'm loving to see Asuma more, because I'm like, I've had my speculations about Asuma since he got first introduced, so I'm really ready to see how he's playing a role in this and what his motives are. But yeah, that's what it really was for episode 11 of Daemons of the Shadow Realm, and that's all I really have for episode 172 of Show Review. So, thank you very much for watching.